if you look at favorability of Congress as a whole, generally people have an overall negative view of Congress. But if you ask people about their local representatives, generally speaking, they love their local rep. It's the same thing in the real estate industry. We have a situation where people love their realtors, and something like 80 or 85% would work with them again if they had to go through a real estate transaction, which is really good. A good reminder as a sidebar to always keep in touch with your past clients. But people love their realtors by and large. What they don't like is the industry as a whole. And a lot of it is because they don't understand, and they don't understand the way it works. They don't understand the value that the practitioners bring. But we also have a wide variety of skills and experience. So just because somebody's new doesn't mean they can't be absolutely outstanding, and just because somebody's been in the business 40 years doesn't mean they know how to do everything either.
You said the word opportunity a few times, and that's the number one thing to me, is that agents have an opportunity to explain their value as a buyer's agent to clients. And to me, what that value is Matt, how many houses have you bought and sold personally, lived in?
For myself or for clients?
For you?
For me, 3.
Okay, and that's probably more than most people at whatever age you are. So here's the thing that we don't tell buyers often, I feel like, is, hey, look, I work with people making these decisions all the time. You think you know what you want. I know how people live because I'm having these conversations, and I'm better prepared to help you make that decision than you are to make that decision yourself. So when you think about it from that lens, rather than just as a transaction agent, I'm a consultant. I can help you to figure out what living situation, what area of town, what type of house will be best in your budget for your life. That's where the real value is.
Where would
that
Matt live in
impacts
Atlanta?
every single day of their lives.
Listeners, Season 2, Episode 4. We have here, all the way down from Atlanta, the Fischer Arnau team, Quinn Arnau, Michael Fischer, some top producing agents with over 25 years of collective experience in the Atlanta market. Leaders, great salespeople, and most importantly, caretakers of one of the largest assets that you have in your lives. This is an episode you do not want to miss. Going to be some great information for both consumers and for real estate professionals. Listen now. How are you guys?
Well, I'm good.
Good.
It was a great drive in this morning. We thank you for hosting us here. We're excited to get to talk to you.
Awesome.
Yeah, man, thanks for having us. With the association work, it's just the people that don't know how to say no and keep saying yes, and you eventually find yourself into a position of leadership.
No is a...
And we enjoy it. And I should clarify, put forth onto the slate by our nominating committee as president-elect for 2025. So we'll see. There is the opportunity for people to run from the floor, and would have to be approved by the membership at the business meeting.
Okay, so there's still like a vote.
Right, of sorts.
Who votes?
Oh gosh, well, if no one runs from the floor and they've got like a month to do so, then it is by affirmation. By voice vote. So.
Okay. So whoever's loudest in the room.
He'll get installed in December.
I'll make sure I
great.
just kind of slip into that room and I'll just yell.
We gotta make sure you're there. We'll get you
Yeah.
a seat. Yeah.
Join us.
just don't acknowledge me, and I'll make sure it's loud.
Right, we can make you a deal on a secondary membership too, or even if you want to be primary. I know Augusta is important to you. So
It is.
You live a lot closer too.
We do.
A little bit closer.
All right, so tell the listeners, who are you guys? What's your story? You're much older than you look. You're gonna be surprised when you find out how old these guys are, because I was a little shocked. We still haven't heard about the skincare routine, so just tell everybody what's your background, what's your story. I want to hear it.
I'll start. So Michael Fischer, I have been licensed since 2010. I started taking my class in 2009, and for those of you that don't remember the market back then, it was pretty terrible. I remember taking my classes, and oftentimes I would be the only person in the class. When I took the test, I was the only person in the room taking my test. Nobody else was getting licensed. So I jumped into a really interesting market, but there was a ton of opportunity because what little business there wasn't a lot of competition. So kind of learned the industry by working with distressed properties and whatever work was out there, and then actually started in Athens, which you may not know either. So I was there for a year, and then I met a nice lady in Atlanta. Didn't end up moving back to Atlanta. Grew up in the metro area, and we ended up getting married and built my career. And
There you go.
you were talking about the association work. For as long as I've been in the industry, I've been involved with the Realtor Association, which has always just been a great supplement to the business. And I think there's a lot of value in giving back to the industry while working within it as well.
You a Georgia Bulldog?
Absolutely, go Dogs!
Go Dogs.
2008.
Start
That's how I
barking.
met Quinn.
Start
Sure.
barking. You're also a Georgia alumni?
I am a Georgia alumni.
Okay, we'll go into that a
Terry
little bit later.
Econ, December 2004, and I'll give away my age, but not my skin care routine. You pay extra for that.
Yeah, can't have everything.
But I guess I'll cover. So I met Michael. Statute has run here, but I gave him his first fake ID, which is funny. If we stood up, you'd notice he's half a foot taller than me. And then, we became friends over the years.
Hold on back. So y'all met because you spotted him, the fake ID.
My big brother in my fraternity was trying to take me out, and he and Quinn were friends. He needed to give me, in Athens, everybody's got a fake ID. I don't think this is a controversial
Right.
thing
I don't think they'll
out
hold.
there.
But
But
this podcast appropriate.
Quinn had just renewed his license, and he's had his expired license, and so I don't think it was expired at the time, but he gave me that, and that got me along for a year or two.
That's right. And
Friendship and a partnership.
it's a friend, and he actually lives
from
over in Aiken, not far.
Oh, really? Okay.
Right.
Horse
And
country.
then, years later, we kind of kept in touch. And in fact, Michael and his business partner at the time came to look at a condo I owned at one point, thinking about listing it. And, a few years later, I was making a career change. I worked in insurance claims and auto for a long time, which taught me a lot about customer service and troubleshooting,
So
problem
you're
solving.
broker insurance.
Oh no, I was in insurance claims. So
Claims.
like you wreck your car, I come out, assess the damage,
Okay.
write an estimate, all that good stuff,
Mhm.
right? And I'd posted on Facebook that I was thinking about getting my real estate license, and then Michael had chimed in and said, "Hey, come talk to our broker, Scott Askew, who's a longtime industry vet, great reputation, great guy." And we worked there together for a couple of months. Then Michael promptly left and started his own brokerage.
Okay.
And then we ended up working
Boomeranging
together
back,
over
yeah.
at Homestead, Michael's business. And then at a certain point, we decided that we would go and form a team together and move to Ansley Real Estate.
Okay. So
we both have kids, and running a brokerage, the boutique business is amazing, but it's a lot of work. And
interesting.
we kind of started talking about working as a team because we have very complementary skill sets. And then we left Homestead and we came over to Ansley. We started a team so we could just focus on our sales business, and it's been incredible.
So
fun little journey.
to make sure I had this correct, so you went from claims, got your license. Did you work for anybody before Homestead?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Who
Yes,
that?
I was there. This was an Engel and Volker's office in town Atlanta, and I was there, and that's pretty much where I had signed on, and Michael was there for a minute, and then had moved on. But I know we talked briefly about we have other parts of our real estate journey, and while I was getting my license, I actually worked at Lululemon for a time. Which I was a bit of a fish out of water. They don't really discount much,
Oh.
and they also don't call it discount. They call it something else, clever marketing wise, and I can't remember exactly what that was. But
Somebody's got to look that up now.
right, it's not a discount.
Fun codes,
because
incentive codes.
Well, listen, because the value may change, but just because the price changes doesn't mean the value doesn't, or something like that. Maybe the value goes up as the price goes down, right?
I understand that, yep.
But it's a journey, and I appreciate all those different skills learned through working in other industries. Also had a deli and catering business for about 18 months.
You're all over the place.
Oh yeah, no, this is the least all over the place I've been in a while. So
I've only known you in a real estate capacity.
Sure.
Yeah. So Michael, you went from Athens. You had your broker's license in Athens, or you had your real estate license.
No, I pretty much started real estate right out of school.
Okay.
I always wanted to do this, and I had a little bit of journey into a desk job, and just that wasn't for me. Corporate world wasn't for me. So I jumped into real estate pretty early on. It's crazy to say I've been doing this almost 15 years now, because I don't feel old enough to have been doing anything for 15 years yet. But no, it was good. And then, like Quinn said, I owned my own brokerage for 7 years. That was a fun journey, and It's a lot of work, but it's a relationship business. So you have your relationships with your agents and other agents and the industry professionals, and just learned a lot. And every step along the way, kind of continued to grow. Made mistakes, had successes and failures, and each of those kind of led us to here. So.
Well, this is really cool because you see a lot of people, at least right now, real estate, 2010, maybe not so much. I think now we're sort of getting in. I want to touch on some similarities between 2008 to 10 versus now. Actually, we'll go into that in a second. But I want to hear a little bit about. I want to hear about a little about your experience, because right now you're seeing a lot of people. They transition into they're going off and starting their own brokerages right now. So it's kind of cool to hear that you have gone there, and now you come back for, it sounds like, some family time, obligation reasons. Maybe it wasn't what you thought it wasn't worth the time. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I think we were talking earlier about how I think a common trend in the industry is that we dedicate 24/7 hours to this business and this industry, and that was something that I've had to kind of shift and break out as my priorities have changed. I have two daughters, so they're 5.5 and 2.5. So I like to be involved. I take them to school every morning. I drop them off, and I pick them up in the afternoon. We're there. We have family dinner together every night. So that's really important to me. So for me, as I was kidless and engaged and in a different phase of my life, being a brokerage, I had a lot more bandwidth and ability to pour into the business and into other people, and then my priorities changed. And I think what Quinn and I have learned is really leaning into what you're good at, and trying to solve for other things that you can either build your team around, or systems or processes. One thing I loved about the brokerage was we had a lot of autonomy in how to pick exactly what we needed at that time. I know that there's a lot of people going out and exploring, starting their own brokerages right now. It's a difficult business because right now we're in a position in the marketplace where, compensation is there's a lot of questions about how that's going to work in the future. And then at the same time, agents are expecting more and they want higher splits. So, the reality of running a business is that you've got to bring in income. How do you bring in income? Your agents sell houses, and a portion of their earnings is retained by the brokerage to provide them the services that they need, and the staff and support and background. The transactions are getting more complicated. They're getting more fraught with risk and the legal challenges that we're facing. I think a lot of the brokerages out there are dealing with how to manage that and protect against potential lawsuits and that kind of thing. And so I think that's really, all those things kind of came in full circle for us when we started our team, which was, I'm definitely less of a analytical process person. Quinn is. And so getting Quinn and I and putting our heads together and saying, okay, what processes can we put into place that really get us the result that we're looking for, and making sure that we're consistent. No matter who we're working with, every plan is tailored a little differently, but the end game is the same. The process is the same. We can cater, our experience with our clients in the same way to create a really boutique experience for them, but one that's done in the same way so that you're not missing and forgetting and slipping on things. And then, in this business, the reality is you spend a lot of time marketing, you spend a lot of time building clients. We wanted to find a way to spend more time managing our transaction and making sure that our clients are taken care of, and not spending all of our time marketing. So how could we create processes around that to where stuff is automated, and some of our business development and marketing is kind of built in. And we found that with our new place was they just had really good systems for helping us market without having to spend a lot of time on it. So that's really tough to do as a brokerage, because you got to be a jack of all trades with a brokerage. You got to do accounting, HR, billing, payroll, marketing. You're marketing the brokerage, but you're also, like, for me, I was selling as a broker and as a boutique broker. Most brokers I know that own their own firms are selling as well. So you're branding your business as a whole, but you're also branding your personal business without competing with your agents. It's tough.
It is, a little bit.
It's tough. I know that was a long thing, but man, it's you learn a lot, and you really have to be. The beauty of entrepreneurship is this business, and I think you were talking a little bit about the future. we're in a spot now where I think it's just prime for innovation. The beauty of this business is if you have a business model, you can think of it and you can go out there and execute it and see if it works. And I think we're going to see a lot of innovation in the next 5 to 10 years. It's really, really cool to see where the industry goes.
Okay, it's really cool. I think that you had the opportunity to go out, do it, and then find out how you really enjoy doing it.
Yep.
And now you've really stunted that in. You got the family, the work-life balance. Being home for dinner every evening is I don't have kids yet, and I already know how difficult that can be, and I'm sure we're about to find out even more here in the future. So for the listeners, in Augusta, we don't have y'all have thrown out a lot of words, Engel & Volkers, Ansley. We don't have a lot of those companies down here. So shed a little bit of light on that, like the Atlanta. Who are some of for those that might be curious, Quinn, I'll let you handle this one. Some of the bigger brokerages over there in Atlanta, who are the players in that market?
Well, there are a number of large companies. I mean, we have, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Atlanta Fine Homes, Sotheby's International Realty, Remax, Coldwell Banker. Really, you name it. And the size of the Atlanta market means that there are involvement from all of these companies. Compass has been on the scene. They're right down the street from us. And, thinking about brokerages, and I know this is a bit of a non sequitur here, but to go back to what Michael said, I think it's important that every successful top producing agent understands brokerage. The beauty of being in brokerage is you have to be the ultimate decision maker, whether it comes down to earnest money or a dispute. And having these well-led organizations with great leaders, both the national, state, and local level, gives us a great network to work collaboratively and cooperatively with true professionals in the area. And that's not to say some of the best people we work with are also with the smaller brokerages. But I do think from a marketing perspective, it can be tough as a smaller brokerage to have the same name recognition and bandwidth as some of the larger brokerages in Atlanta, because you're kind of the first question you're answering is, well, who is insert your small brokerage name when they're seeing some of the nationwide marketing budgets and things like that, big billboards in the Atlanta area.
Lots of big billboards everywhere.
And the technology stack these days too. I mean, that was one thing that we really struggled with as a boutique was our agents wanted really sophisticated technology, and our only option was to pay for it, which increases the cost, which then would increase the splits naturally. And when you don't have, we had 10 to 12 agents, kind of depending on which point of the brokerage we were there. We did well on a per agent basis, but it was really hard to recruit against other brokerages that have just really sophisticated tech stacks. And, a lot of these, I think, if Quinn mentioned Compass, Compass is pitching themselves as a tech company first. And, they do brokerage and a lot of the elements are traditional, but all the brokerages are having to pivot into technology because the agents are demanding it. And that can get really expensive really quick. So if you've got the bandwidth of a national brand with the ability to purchase or have, really sophisticated tech departments, that becomes really tough to compete against as a brokerage. Because then you have to buy individual apps and individual pieces of technology and then try and stitch them together.
And I would add, this is only based on my limited knowledge, but with most of the larger national brokerages, these tech stacks are largely proprietary. Some of them are third-party companies that are either software as a service. That's another acronym that I was always like, what does SaaS mean? Like
software as a service.
Software as a service. Okay. But a lot of these things are proprietary, right? They're made specifically for the industry we work in. And, that's something that requires a different level of skill and a scale that these larger companies can accomplish just more efficiently than some smaller companies sometimes.
Okay. And Ansley Real Estate, is Ansley more of a traditional split brokerage with a lot of services, or are they more of a higher end split but kind of do it on your own?
I would say it's a full service brokerage.
Okay.
and also as part of
You have a
the
printer.
larger Christie's International Network. Yes. I think I was told that the last printer that was purchased is almost the size of an entire room. I don't know. I've never seen it. The marketing department is actually housed in a separate location than our sales office is.
But they're also part of the At Properties group. So At
Oh, it's
Properties based
At.
in
Oh,
Chicago.
really?
So
Yeah.
they have a partnership there. So the At Properties technology stack is awesome, and it's also vertically integrated. So you sell a house, your client automatically gets loaded into your CRM. Your CRM then, when you need to pull a mailing list, you push one button. I mean, it's all vertically integrated, which is, I've always been a big proponent of, if you're gonna, rather you do less and do it well than do too much and then it's all over the place, because you have too much, you're not going to use any of it. But the vertically integrated part has been I don't know how I can live without it now.
Well, if you get, you see it a lot with, in our market as well. We have a lot of very, very established traditional brokerages here in Augusta.
Yeah.
And I'm part of one of them. And one of the tasks, or the kind of the way you get the concerns or the problems, right?
Yeah.
When new technology is introduced, it takes a lot of time to get absorbed by the company and the agents who've been doing this for
Training them
decades.
up. Yeah, exactly.
And we have a lot of agents here who've been doing it for decades. And so that vertical integration is got to be paramount. I mean, it's got to be front and center. Hey, you just type this in, right? We all know how to type into a spreadsheet or into a little on a computer, and then boom, it goes through all this stuff. And now you have one click to send out your email list, send out the new listing, send out this, that, blah, 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 blah.
Well, we hired a transaction coordinator. That was the first thing we did when we came over, and it was something that I resisted for years, because I was like, if I'm giving away that part of what I'm doing, how am I earning my money? But I shifted my brain there and kind of thought about it from hiring somebody to do this, of which they're really good at, and establishing a process for them to follow allows me to spend more time with my clients now, because I'm not spending time entering stuff into a computer.
Yeah. What do y'all feel like y'all are doing best? Like, what are you two both? What's your dynamic?
I mean, I'd say we've been working together as a team for like 2.5 years now, and I really feel like we're starting to have some of those exponential gains as far as our systems and forward-looking business. The way I look at the tech stack at the other members of our team, which this summer's been included our intern, Anna Newton, who's going to be a senior at UGA, Go Dogs, who has helped us to learn a lot about marketing. We've really bolstered some of our efforts there. But a lot of these things are a scaffolding to which things happen even if we're not right on them directly. So when we start adding things, we're not giving up a piece of marketing to add another one. Nothing's falling by the wayside. We're building momentum. And, in times of dynamic and shifting markets, which if these last few years haven't been wild and shifting, I don't know what is. When our circumstances change on a day-to-day basis, the way we are handling our business in the back end does not, which is, ultimately, to me, assures a sustainable career and future success. We're not jumping out of our marketing and into sales and then back into marketing. We've got systems that provide for consistent results. Yeah, and that ultimately provides consistent results for our clients too.
The biggest mistake I see agents make is when they're doing really well, they focus on their transactions and they let their prospecting and marketing fall off. And then they wonder why I was really busy for these 3 months and then I have nothing to do now. And yes, there's shifts in the market, but by and large it's because they're not staying consistent with their prospecting and marketing. They're not meeting with the customer that's looking in 90 days and 180 days. They're focused on the transaction in the now.
Are you aware of the book Rocket Fuel?
I haven't, no.
It's a great book. It's really short. I think the audio book's maybe 2.5, 3 hours.
Okay.
And it's called the VI Duo. So you have like the visionary and integrators. The visionary, or the salesperson, and our job is kind of the salesperson.
Yeah.
Or knows how to bring in. You see all the flash different ways to procure clients.
Right.
And so the VI Duo, they're the ones making the calls. The V's making the calls. The V's doing that. The I is right on their tails, making sure that, one, they're continuing to do, the V is doing their production, but the I is the marketing, the sales,
Yeah.
the emails, everything like that. And it's one of the it's a really good book, the VI Rocket Fuel.
All right, I'll have to check that
Oh,
out.
but if they have it on tape, then I could listen
Oh
to
yeah,
it.
audio book.
I'm a big reader. So
You could almost
I'll put
finish
that on
that
the list.
book on the way back to Atlanta today.
Right. Well, I mean, that's something. As much as we're in the car, like I find time books on tape, which is funny because like some of the people listening to this don't even know what a tape is, probably. But, books out from the cloud. But yes, and I think that that's one of the things we work with is Michael is excellent with his networking and keeping up with relationships and things like that. And sometimes I feel like I'm steering because he's always going, and it's fun to watch that work and see where we can continue to grow our business. Transaction coordinator, intern, maybe full time.
We have showing assistant now, so we've got different parts of the city. We've got showing assistants. So,
Showing assistant.
Oh yeah, man.
What is that?
So basically, we can only be one place at one time, but two places at two times. Right. Sometimes we'll have houses that need to be opened up. We'll have a buyer that needs to see a house. And in Atlanta, driving 5 miles might take half an hour, and you've only got so many hours in the day. And to your, to the earlier point about me liking to be home for dinner, somebody calls and wants to see a house at 6. I have a showing assistant that'll go and open up the house, and our buyer knows going into the transaction that they have a team supporting them. So it's not just myself and Quinn, it's our back end and the front end. So, I say, look, there's not going to be a time where you won't be able to get into a certain house, even though I'm, working full time. I've got a family. I've got, hours. A story I love to share is, so Chase Mizell is one of the top agents in all of Atlanta. One of the top agents in the country. He sells an enormous amount of real estate, and he does a really good job. And I did a transaction with Chase not too long ago, and the first thing he says in his kind of introductory call when you're talking through an offer is that he stops working at 7 p.m. And he's like, after 7 and before 7, that's my time. And, so if you need a response to something, I'll check my email at 7, and then I'm signing off for the day. And I was like, I'm thinking in my head, that's crazy. Like, this guy is one of the top producing agents in the entire country, and he sets the standard up front with what his expectation is for his hours. And guess what? If I needed an amendment over, I would say, hey, we got to get this over by 6 if we want it signed. He set the rules of the game, and then everybody follows it. And I think, that was such a powerful interaction for me, because if he can do it, then the rest of us can.
Have you gone and emulated that?
Absolutely.
Okay. How's it working?
I slip sometimes because I love working. I'm a workaholic, and I'll do stuff like I'll get back on the computer after the girls go to bed or whatever. But no, I tell people, I'm like, look, I maybe don't have as firm hours as Chase does, but I've grown very comfortable with saying, hey, it's 8 o'clock. Let's regroup on this tomorrow morning. Whereas another version of myself 5-10 years ago would have said, I can jump on the clock, phone at 9:30. Now, are there calls that I take after 9? Of course. I mean, I still do it
Sometimes
from time to time,
Right.
but I would say it's 1 in 100 chance of me taking a call very late now, and it's truly a fire. And I think that building that expectation and putting that into a system is something that's incredibly powerful, and it's something that everybody else can do. An attorney. What attorney are you going to call at 10 p.m. and get legal advice?
None.
None of them.
None.
Right.
Not without a
They have
steak
hours.
dinner. You got to buy them a steak dinner afterwards.
Yeah, right. Maybe after happy hour, but that's a different environment. But if you look at most professionals out there, they get their job done within working hours. And I think, a lot of people put value in trying to work hard and show that they're working hard, and they're maybe just not being efficient with their time or setting boundaries.
So I have a comment on that because we touched on setting expectations with our clients up front. And I think one thing that gets lost in this business that should be so obvious is, we're dealing with people, right? And they have their lives and expectations. And have you ever heard a client, either of you, say, I didn't want to bother you?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
felt
So
bad.
I want to see this house, but I didn't want to bother you. And what you do when you let them know that, hey, I'm a person, and I've got a family, I've got other things that I attend to, and those allow me to fulfill my other buckets and bring my best self to you at the most crucial points of the transaction. then they know, hey, look, if it's not the best time, or if Michael can't make it, he's not going to rearrange his whole schedule. They've got somebody that they trust, that they have already spoken with, that they'll get prepared to go out and take a look at a property with us. And then, oh, by the way, if we write a contract, one or both of us can go back out there, vet the house, meet the inspector, all those things. So we're taking pressure off the client by letting them know that we have already made plans for when other things come up, because they know they do.
How do you set that expectation with your clients? What do you, when you first meet with your client? I know meeting a client can happen in tons of different ways, but how do you set that expectation so you don't ever get that, hey, yeah, I didn't want to bother you text?
Are we going to talk about buyer consultations now?
We're going to get into
That's
that.
all that we've been, that's the buzz in the industry right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's just it. You let them know that not to hesitate, because if it's not an ideal situation for a showing, then we've got someone that we have entrusted to assist us with that. That we have support behind us if something happens after hours. We set expectations as far as communication is a big one for me. A thing I often say to clients or to other agents or brokers is, look, if I do not have an answer by 5 o'clock, I will call you anyway. And the reason I do that is because I know if I don't have an answer until 5 o'clock, I'm going to get a text, every once in a while. So what that does is that takes some of the anxiety away. Hey, look, because otherwise they're going to sit there and say, well, when will I hear from Quinn? When will I hear from him? I've already told them.
Yeah.
They know when they're going to get news or they're not going to get news. And if I get news before then, I just call them and say, hey, look, I've got news. And if I have bad news, I call and I say, I have bad news. But here's what we're going to do. Here's what our options are.
You have a plan in place already.
Yeah,
Right.
There's always got to be a plan in place. You circling back a little bit, you talked about a core, like what's something that we feel like we do really well together, and I think a common theme through everything that we're doing is trust, both within our team. I think that's our superpower. Like, I trust Quinn to do something when he says he's going to do it, and vice versa. He trusts me, and if there's a direction, he says, I think we need to do this and go this direction, I trust him. And I think when I see teams that work really well together, there's this common thread of trust, and it's the same thing with the clients. So you were talking about, how's the buyer consultation go? What do we talk about? Well, I think the first thing is, every transaction is relationship built. So we start by trying to establish a foundation of communication.
Let me stop you right there. And I want to understand that, and I don't even know the answer to this question yet, but I know their answer is going to be really great. So I'm going to ask one question, because we have buyer consultations as a very hot topic right now in the real estate industry. So I'm going to ask one question. Their answer is going to be awesome. I know it's going to be awesome because they're consummate professionals. How long have you been doing buyer consultations, and how long have you been really emphasizing the buyer brokerage agreement?
My whole career.
Yes.
Every time.
Whole
Same.
career? Yes.
Same. And,
Perfect.
you have to do, some buyers don't want to be consulted with in certain ways. They just want to go see the house. So, we try, and if we can get somebody and explain to them the ideal situation is we sit down and talk about your goals first,
And these days
learn
with
communication
Zoom,
preferences and styles. We have utilized Zoom, and that allows us the opportunity for both of us to meet with somebody.
We've had a
Because
situation. We have a
Right.
closing. Actually happened today. We met the clients first on Zoom because this was part of an estate, and they're selling land in the city, and they don't live in the city. So we got together on Zoom. It's actually about a year ago. This property's been under contract for
since October.
since October of last year. But that's DeKalb County, and it's a subdivision, and it's everybody knew what they were getting into going into this. That's a whole another story for another day. But we go to them, and it's about building that relationship. And we got face to face with them on Zoom, and I think, I never take out a buyer unless I've sat down with them, because you have to establish the ground rules, the expectations, but you also set them up for success. I'll ask questions like, okay, we're going to go see this house. If you liked it and want to make an offer, are you prepared to do so? And if they say no, then it's like, okay, then we don't need to be seeing this house yet. We can't just look, because that's going to complicate the process. You might be looking at a price point that you can't afford. You might be, if you love this house and it fits everything you're looking for, but you can't buy it, that could cloud the process for you and make it more difficult. So we try and set the boundaries early, and it might be, we'll go look at the house, but let's meet an hour earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll kind of talk about the strategy. We also like to share some of our knowledge, and this is what we have found to be helpful within the transaction, and try and put some things, and then it's just asking a lot of questions and then listening. That was something that I had to battle with for a long time, was figuring out which questions to ask to get the information that we need to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And every client's different. Everyone has different needs, and getting to the bottom of their motivations for moving. I don't know if this happens with you, but I'm often the first person to find out that the wife is pregnant.
Okay.
It's happened at least 4 or 5 times the last couple of years, but they'll call me
before who knows before
the parents know. They'll tell me, "Hey, Michael."
Like, don't tell my husband.
No. But they'll say, "Hey, we need a shop for a house," and nobody else knows. But my wife is pregnant, and right there, okay, we've got a 6 to 8 month timeline.
Yep.
And we got to get moving, because you got to sell your house, you got to get ready, and you're not going to want to be packing boxes in 6 months.
Painting the nursery.
Exactly. So they want to be settled, and so you start walking them through the timeline. But have you not been the first person?
I have
people that are like, don't tell my parents, because we work a lot on referral basis. So people will say, hey, you can't tell so-and-so who referred you to us that I'm pregnant, because they don't know yet, and we don't want anybody to know yet. It's too early, but we need to start this process.
We have a not me. I have it on my desk. We have a scheduled C-section August 20th and a closing date of September 6th.
Oh.
I said, y'all don't worry. I got an army of high schoolers. They're going to help you pack. We're going to send them on over.
That's amazing.
Cheapest labor ever. We're going to figure this out. But they had to have this home.
Yeah.
Super, super high stress, super anxiety. But we've been looking for like a year and a half. And the deal they got, I mean, this is like this house, honestly, is I don't know if the person looked at the comps when they put it on the market. But, oh my gosh.
And you got in and got it.
There are deals to be had right now.
Yeah,
got it.
There's some opportunity in the marketplace, man. We're seeing a lot of that. So good for them. Congratulations to them.
Mm-hmm. So we're excited for them. It's going to be
a good story too.
Mm-hmm. So buyer consultation. We got a lot of changes coming up. We got a lot of changes. I've heard maybe getting reversed and put back, and God bless the hardworking forms committee at GAR, because those people have I've sat on some of the meetings.
Yeah.
And let me tell you this, those people care immensely, sometimes maybe too much. They care immensely, and they put a ton of work in on these forms to try to make this right, because we have a very tumultuous next couple of years when it comes to the conversations we have with buyers, the conversations we have with sellers. So for those who do not know, now if you want to go look at a home with a real estate professional starting August 16th or 17th? 17th. Yep. You have to have some sort of buyer agreement, buyer agency, buyer customer agreement signed with your agent. If you are not signing that agreement, your agent is in violation of rules on a national level. That have been set on a national level. Yep. And we'll see what the DOJ and the private catchmark litigation, all that kind of comes up with in the future. But for right now, that's the rule. So I want to hear about what y'all are doing to prepare. I know you've already been preparing. You've been preparing for 10 years, really. But what are y'all really leaning into what are y'all really focusing on the next 12 months? I want to hear what y'all's thoughts are on what do you think this is going to lead to the next 12 to 24 months?
I mean, I think ultimately, we have been preparing because we've been having these conversations with our buyers and our sellers throughout our careers. Not only explaining to people the sales process, but also how our compensation models work. And I would say that we have been prepared for that using the buyer brokerage agreements. I mean, in Georgia, if you're giving anything more than ministerial, if you're performing anything more than ministerial actions, you should have a buyer brokerage agreement anyway if you're giving any advice, whether it's repairs, price, anything to a buyer, you should already have that agreement. And if you send something to someone to sign, you should explain to them at least the highlights of that. So I feel like we are prepared to be consistent and not reactive to the coming changes to the market. And by doing so, then we will have that confidence, which will then impart to our buyers and sellers. They're not going to be wondering what's going on because we're prepared to explain to them.
Yeah, I think just my key words are opportunity and value. I mean, we have an opportunity in the industry to really shift the perspective of what we do, and a lot of the foundation of these complaints from the public are that they didn't understand the industry. They didn't understand what we were doing. They just opened up doors. You got that thing, oh, this person just opened up doors and, I can look for houses online, and they don't understand the nuance and the complexity of the transaction, especially today. So quick story, my business partner started in 1974, my old business partner, and she had contracts from 1974 in a box. And I remember looking through them one day just out of curiosity, and they're basically one page, and the first pre-printed portion basically said address, purchase price, and then the rest of it was blank, and you wrote in the terms. Everything else you basically wrote in. And
oh man.
Right. And so, when you look at the contracts these days, you could have 25 or 30 pages worth of disclosures, worth of legal, stuff, and understanding the nuance of all that is so important. But all that came from lawsuits, and it came from issues that happened between buyers and sellers that the real estate community had, looked at and said, hey, this is something we're seeing consistently. How can we get ahead of this? How can we fix this before it becomes a problem? And that's how you get where we are now. And I think, for us, we took for granted that history within the industry of getting to where we are today, and just tried to onboard as many people as we could and get them out and open indoors as quick as they could. And nowadays with buyers, I think this is a great opportunity for us to slow down. And like you said, everybody should be sitting down and explaining what the transaction looks like. They should be familiar with the paperwork that they're going to go through. It's going to create a better experience for the buyer, but they'll have a better appreciation for what we do. And I think there's an interesting survey, and I don't have the exact numbers, but if you look at this is kind of like Congress, right? If you look at favorability of Congress as a whole, generally people have an overall negative view of Congress. But if you ask people about their local representatives, generally speaking, they love their local rep. This is the same thing in the real estate industry. We have a situation where people love their realtors, and something like 80 or 85% would work with them again if they had to go through a real estate transaction, which is really good. A good reminder as a sidebar to always keep in touch with your past clients. But people love their realtors by and large. What they don't like is the industry as a whole. And a lot of it is because they don't understand, and they don't understand the way it works. They don't understand the value that the practitioners bring. But we also have a wide variety of skills and experience. So just because somebody's new doesn't mean they can't be absolutely outstanding. And just because somebody's been in the business 40 years doesn't mean they know how to do everything either. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of continuing. I mean, you said in a forms classes. How many agents in Georgia are sitting in a forms classes so that they can understand the nuance of the paperwork that we deal with in a transaction? It's not a lot. So we have a huge opportunity in our business to really double down on the good practices and communicate that value and understand where we're going, how we got here. And I think the history of the organization is a really important key part of that. We didn't just come up with forms one day and say, these are our forms and they don't change. It's we got here because there was a need from the public. And what's cool about the forms and the realtor associations as a whole is a lot of it comes from the public, and they say, hey, we need to fix this. It could be local ordinances on housing. It could be bad transactions. It could be anything related to the real estate industry. And they often will come to the association and say, hey, let's get together and put our heads together. And how can we fix this? Because we all believe that home ownership is important. We all believe that it should be fair and equitable. And we do this through our industry. So I think there's a huge opportunity here in the future to continue showing our value and showing how we do this and explaining it and slowing down. And I think you're going to get a higher quality experience from everybody involved.
So you said the word opportunity a few times, and that's the number one thing to me, is that agents have an opportunity to explain their value as a buyer's agent to clients. And to me, what that value is Matt, how many houses have you bought and sold personally, lived in?
For myself or for clients?
For you.
For me, 3.
Okay, and that's probably more than most people at whatever age you are. So here's the thing that we don't tell buyers often, I feel like, is, hey, look, I work with people making these decisions all the time. You think you know what you want. I know how people live because I'm having these conversations, and I'm better prepared to help you make that decision than you are to make that decision yourself. So when you think about it from that lens, rather than just as a transaction agent, I'm a consultant. I can help you to figure out what living situation, what area of town, what type of house will be best in your budget for your life. That's where the real value is.
Where would
that
Matt live
impacts
in Atlanta?
every single day of their lives.
Where would you stick Matt in Atlanta?
I think he. I think he
Inman
come.
Parker?
Yeah, I think he come do Grant Park. He could be
Grant
my
Park?
neighbor.
Yeah, I think you're an in-town guy.
Actually, we got something coming up in Kirkwood. We've got something listed up in Alpharetta and Ellard. He might
Wherever
like that.
the closest Miller Lite tap is where you should put me.
See, that's
It's
where I was.
Virginia
like, we got a
Highland.
cold draft beer, right?
We'll put him in Georgia, somewhere walking distance in George's and,
Sure.
and Moe's and Joe's.
I will keep the lights on. If whoever has the nearest Miller Lite tap, I will keep their lights on.
See, we've
Very simple.
taken all of Metro
That's right.
Atlanta and distilled it down to 2 neighborhoods. There
Sure.
you go. That's professionalism right there.
It's we all both described is something I've always thought of. It's a challenge. NAR has such a tough task because these the lawsuits themselves, in my opinion, they attack sort of, they say it's antitrust, it's a collective, but really, the buyer representation, that was a collective decision. An industry said, hey, we need buyer representation because agents cannot effectively work in a dual agency or a sub-agency capacity effectively every single time. When it's easy, it's easy. But when it gets hard, that can spiral out of control. We need buyer agency. These forms, so they've gone from 1 page to 20 pages because we as a giant collective we work together. That's why I love the association, the GAR, the local level, we're RGA here, ARA, NAR. I love these because everyone there is passionate, and it's a very collaborative space. The conferences are so much fun, and that's being attacked right now is that collective. But we've collectively, decades and decades, and then when you think about every single person and every single experience and transaction, they bring that experience and knowledge to that collective, and then we collectively, I'm saying collective a lot, but it's important, we have made the real estate transaction better for the general public. When it's like, you said, oh, all they did was open a door and they made a $10,000 check. Well, if that's how it felt to you, that's great, because that's not how it can always feel.
Yeah.
Right, and I think you speak to a great point there is, I think there's a sentiment that it's easier to buy and sell a home for a consumer than ever. And so I would say 2 things. One, we got here through the efforts of many realtors making the process more consumer-friendly, more competitive, and more thorough. We have better technology than ever. And then I would also say, on the other hand, it's also harder to choose with all this information out there, and that's why you need a trusted expert.
Mm-hmm. Why do I need a real estate agent? I got Zillow. Okay. Yeah. Well, yes, so does everybody else. And if you think that makes it easier, no. It's having a pocket listing, things like that. These getting the inside scoop. That data is more available to everyone, which also means more competition.
Yep.
You need an advocate on your side to help you navigate that, because now it's not just that person who happens to see that sign up on the street, because in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, now everyone can catch that house at the exact same time.
Yeah. Well, here's my prediction. Mm-hmm. We've seen a lot of leverage get pushed into the seller side. The sellers have more equity than ever. They have the benefit from a generally lower supply market. I don't see the supply changing anywhere, particularly in Atlanta. We're just not building enough, and people aren't moving enough to free up that supply. But I'm willing to bet that in several years we're going to see the buyer advocacy side step back up, and people are going to say, wait, some of these changes that we made have been really harmful to buyers, particularly first-time homeowners, people without a lot of money down. and they're the ones that are going to be pushed out because they're going to have a harder time getting representation. And going back to those 1970s contracts, there wasn't a space for the buyer's agent because their concept of that did not exist. We created buyer's agency because, to your point, it wasn't fair for a seller to have a professional that is seasoned in doing real estate transactions with all the information and all of the knowledge and all of the ability to take advantage of that to the benefit of the seller. We said we got to get some buyer's agents in here to try and help level the playing field. And I think we're seeing the pendulum shift heavily towards the sellers, and I think it's going to swing back. It always does. In my 14 years, the pendulum always goes back one way or the other. There's no supply, there's tons of supply. There's low interest rates, there's high interest rates. The pendulum always overcorrects. And I think right now we're probably overcorrecting a little bit for sellers, but it will shift back towards the buyers when the buyers realize that they need help and they need guidance and they need professional advice.
And good luck winning a multiple offer situation in the Atlanta area with an agent who doesn't have the relationships and doesn't know the nuances required to get the best information and put together the best deal.
Right.
And oftentimes we're not talking about monetary terms. We're talking about the other terms in the contract.
It's very important to really emphasize, to your point, as far as you talk about, like, there's so much information. Why do I need a real estate agent? Well, there's also a lot of bad information out there.
Yeah.
And, And I don't think it gets communicated clearly enough that we still need to double our inventory in most markets.
Or triple, quadruple,
to create a true, if you want to go call it a buyer's market or a balanced market, and homes, very desirable homes that are priced well, we'll have multiple offers. And part of our jobs, once again, it's not really finding the home. That's a part of it. But honestly, like you said y'all have a showing assistant, because really that's something that can be done by anybody.
Yep.
That's
the easiest part of it. Yeah.
You have a decade of building relationships, putting in time that's not paid, by the way.
25 years between the two of us.
25
Doesn't
years.
seem like there would be, but
yeah, unpaid hours. They said it takes 10,000 hours of mastery. You can knock that out in about 3.5, 4 years of real estate. So you've really mastered this, arguably 5-6 times, I would say. And that's what you get when you work with you, because the connections matter, the knowledge matters. How do you frame that offer, right? How do you frame that? What's the best way? You're looking at your sellers. How do you present your house into the market in a way to maximize your net profit, maximize the sort of terms that's going to make it easier, and that's what takes time, and you can't teach that in a classroom.
Transactions are so complex, and it's not just the physical transaction itself. It's we're putting a house on the market tomorrow, and it's helping the client not just sell their house, but how do they move into their house with the least amount of disruption. Mm-hmm. They've got a kid, they've got 2 dogs, wife is pregnant. That's a lot of stuff to have to navigate through, and guiding them in the process. I mean, we do this, and I have to reassure them. It's we do this every day. Very few people can sell their house or buy a house without selling their existing house. They need the equity to move from one property to the next. So we can hold their hand and kind of say, okay, this has set you up for best success. If you just throw your house on the market and expect everything to work out, or you go and buy a house or try to buy a house, and that was a conversation we had with that, is if you go and try and buy a house with a sales contingency on it, you're never going to get an offer accepted. The sellers just aren't going to work with it in this marketplace. So how can we best prepare you to start entering the market as a buyer and also sell your house? And so it's that navigation there.
Confident agents make confident clients, and confident clients get the houses that they want.
And they show up to the closing table too.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
So we're going to close out on a question I love to ask all the guests.
Okay.
It's better in the beginning of the year, so I kind of have to frame this a little differently. What is something you guys are most excited about for the next 12 months? I say 2024, but for real estate in the next 12 months, what are you most excited about?
Well, I'm excited for the Federal Reserve to do what they should have done
That's going to be my answer.
a while back.
I got to think of something else
and unstick the market. People need to move. I don't think we'll ever get back to quite where we were, but, I think more today than ever, the news cycle drives public sentiment, and even a small decrease in rates by the Fed is going to send buyers back into the market, and folks need to move. There have been people waiting and waiting and waiting, and they need to move to the next phase of their lives with the help of a realtor.
That was definitely going to be mine, so I wish I had gone first. But aside from rates being the obvious thing that I think is going to happen in the next few months, hopefully, I'm just really excited about the innovation. And every time the market gets disrupted in some way, you see a flood of innovation. And I saw it in 2010. We had so many transactions happening because, we would go in with a 1-year listing plan. That's how I went into my initial listing presentations. Here's what we're going to do: 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Here's where our price drops will be. Here's where our open houses will be. You sketched an entire year because that's how long it took to sell a house. And then it flipped. And within that and all the transactions that were happening, there was a lot of innovation. You saw Zillows and Trulias and Redfins and just all these different business models pop up. And some of them are still around and some of them aren't. But innovation is good for the customer. It's good for the consumer. It's good for the marketplace. I'm excited to see what's next because I think there's going to be another wave of innovation that's going to change our industry in a way that we don't quite know how yet. You've got AI out there that, I know people are using it within their businesses now to help, effectively become a personal assistant. You've got a lot of companies investing a lot of money in technology. So I think it's a really exciting time from that perspective. Something that hasn't happened yet that I was really excited about maybe 5-10 years ago was there was a business where you would walk into a room that would turn the house into a virtual reality room. So you could walk around the home and you could be in California and you could tour a condo in New York and you could walk around and you could look around and you could see the whole house and see how it felt and you can make an offer right there. And so the idea was that you could take everybody to houses around the world without actually taking them anywhere. And so that never caught on, but we have a lot of creative minds in here. There's a lot of innovation happening, and I think in the future we're going to see whatever's next. We're going to continue to innovate because it's such an exciting space.
Bottom line for both your responses is it's an exciting time for consumers because I think the real estate industry as a whole, the real estate process is about to become even more consumer friendly.
I think the agents, to make it in this marketplace, you have to innovate and you have to be agile, and this is going to force agents that may not want to be agile to be more agile and more innovative.
You're going to have to get better, or you're going to have to go find something else to do.
Yep. Y'all, it's been awesome. We spent about an hour here talking. The listeners who have listened to this whole process, the real estate agents, I think there's a lot of value that's been shared here today. Thank you very much, both of you guys.
Thanks for having us, man.
Quinn,
Thank you.
Michael,
Go
formerly known
Dogs.
as Matt. Go Dogs. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks.